This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
We are here at And Beyond Ngala, and we are navigating through this nice big rocky section. And so I hope everyone is holding on as we go over this big bumpy patch. So just welcome aboard and come and join us on your very own African safari from the African bush. Driving in a riverbed that I haven't driven in quite a while, so I just want to make sure I can drive through this area. But anyway, we are on the search, still looking for, see, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. We are searching for a female leopard that we haven't seen in quite a while. I'm just going to have to see if I can move slowly up here. Easy does it. And so we've just kind of gone into an area that we haven't driven in quite some time because we haven't seen any tracks of her anywhere in the reserve. So we thought, why not try this dry riverbed and just look at this bank that we're driving along. So this is a beautiful big bank that's caused by quite a lot of erosion, and look, this tree is actually just about to fall down. I wonder how many rainy seasons it's going to survive. And by the way, my name is Eric, and behind camera is Owen. So welcome to And Beyond Ngala.
Good afternoon. Here we are at Djuma Private Game Reserve on the western fringes of the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park. Those are not legless wildebeest, those are in fact sleeping wildebeest, and they are enjoying the shade here on a relatively warm late winter's afternoon. My name is HENDRY, and on camera, magnificent, very big bicep BK Bokomoso. There he is. Let us go back to the wildebeest. As I said, a very pleasant afternoon, a little northwest wind blowing, and I think the temperature's around about 23 or 24 degrees. Please do talk to us, remember, using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, otherwise you can use the chat stream on YouTube or on Twitch, or if you're a youngster, you can send us any questions that you'd like to on kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Our plan is going to be to go and look for a lioness that is apparently quite close by here. It's unlikely she'll be doing anything other than lying about, much like those wildebeest actually, except she'll probably be flatter. And so I don't know how long we'll spend with her. We might come back to her a little bit later. But then we'll go and see if we can find some elephants perhaps going down to have a drink or a swim. And whatever else nature chooses to bless us with this afternoon, we shall appreciate. That is the sound of a lilac-breasted roller, a beautiful bird with an extremely ugly call. Pranav, the diet of a wildebeest is grass. They are basically sleeping in their food. As you can see there, it's a little bit like, I suppose, if you were to sleep in a bowl of your breakfast. That is precisely what those wildebeest are doing. They are grazers almost exclusively. In desperation, they may take to a little bit of browsing or eating of the leaves from woody plants or from herbaceous herbs, if you like, but by and large, they're going to eat grass. And not much else. I suppose every so often they eat an insect with the grass by mistake, but that's not by choice.
Good afternoon, everyone, from a simply glorious day out here at Tswalu Kalahari. Davy is on camera doing an absolutely incredible job of capturing this magnificent landscape that we're in. My name is Dylan, and it is such a pleasure having you with us on these drives as always. I've got no particular plan for this afternoon. That's my standard thing. I don't normally have a plan, but every now and again I'll come up with something. But we're just going to go out and explore it and enjoy it. What I do want to say up front though is I'm sitting in what I believe has got to be one of the most stunningly beautiful and remarkable landscapes that I've ever seen in Southern Africa. It is a vast land. It is an incredibly ancient land with a deep history, both of its biota, its naturally occurring biota, as well as a deep, deep, deep cultural history. And while we're on these drives, I'll try to show you various aspects of these things, as our colleagues are doing in the other areas as well. But you can just get an idea of the vastness of this landscape and just how stunningly beautiful it really is. If anyone's wondering what these cactus-like plants are growing behind me and actually surrounding me over here, they are not cactuses. These are euphorbias. Many of you in South Africa will know them as a naboom. You just get a whole lot of different species. Some are minuscule, tiny, 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 nondescript looking little things. Others, like these, are a lot larger. And these are called mountain euphorbias. The name is very apt. They tend to only grow up on the mountains. We occasionally get little pockets of them growing low down, but very typically growing up in the hills like this. They get very, very small little yellow flowers, but bees go crazy over the nectar that they produce. But what is particularly interesting about that is the nectar can actually give you a burning sensation when you eat it, and it's called noodshoney in Afrikaans, or nauseous honey.
What a beautiful elephant bum. Slowly walking away from a small waterhole up a rocky hillside to better feeding grounds. It's a wonderful afternoon. Can't wait to see what else is going to be with us. Hi, I'm Mike. Behind the camera is Gert, and you're joining us here at Pridelands Conservancy. Yes, we were sitting with an elephant bull, and he was drinking, and he's decided to walk up a small hill. The rest of the herd has also moved up this hill. In fact, there's a few more just coming across in front of us. Some more young bulls. Hello, old chap. This one, as you see, just lumbering off into the distance. There's our other little chap there. There's a younger bull. As we watch this elephant disappear up this hill, we'll drive around the corner, and we'll hopefully come up with the rest of the herd that had just finished drinking. There was a lot of them. There was lots of babies and mothers. So as you know, Pridelands is becoming very well known for just the sheer amount of elephants. Every road we drive on, it just seems like there's more and more elephants. In fact, this morning was the first time we drove around and didn't see an elephant until right at the end. But then it was all of a sudden elephants everywhere. And this elephant bull is just stopping and sniffing and smelling everything as it goes, in case there's anything tasty. You know, when you're so big, you need to feed all the time. So even though it is following those elephants, it won't lose them. They can communicate over huge distances. So it'll be very easily communicating with the other elephants to keep up with them. You can see there's lots of fallen trees here around this waterhole. So the elephants obviously come here quite often. And they're doing a little bit of damage to the environment. It seems like damage, but it's actually very important. Without elephants creating equilibrium, the environment will become very thick. Daniel, you've asked something about the ear holes. Where are the ear holes of an elephant, or how big? I'm not sure.
where are the ear holes? So the ear holes, Daniel, are actually on the front of those big ears. You see this elephant walking away from us here. The ear holes are not behind those flapping ears. They're actually in the front. Now it's stopped behind a very thick bush, so you can't see it. But when they look towards you, you'll be able to see there's a bit of a divot on the front of the ears. That's where the ear holes are. So this elephant in front of us actually might be showing us his ears quite nicely there. So just in front of us, there's an elephant, and you'll be able to see those ear holes. See, there it is, right there. Beautiful. It's actually showing us right into his ear. Good job, Mr. Elephant. So Daniel, that's the ear holes, and they have to be very careful because those can get filled of mud when they are mud bathing. And we actually saw an elephant, was it this morning? I think it was this morning or maybe yesterday, who had laid down to have a bit of a sleep. When it stood up again, it spent a long time pushing its trunk into its ear, trying to pick at something that was obviously in there, maybe a branch or something, got into its ear or some grass. It was very itchy. So Daniel, that's where the ear holes are. And there, oh, lots of elephants coming down to the water hole. Hello, elephants. We might have to move a little bit back because I'm actually parked on a game path here, and I don't want to block these elephants. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start the car and just move us back ever so slightly, because they are going to walk right on this game path which my vehicle is parked on. Just give me 1 second. Okay, I've given them a tiny bit of space there, not much, but a little bit. It looks like they're actually choosing a different route anyway. They saw me parked there and they decided that they were going to go elsewhere. But look at that, hey? We were just talking about how we hadn't seen that many elephants this morning, except right at the end, and now the whole herds are just coming on down. This is great. Remember, as I said, they can communicate over huge distances, so when one elephant herd comes to the water, they're probably talking all about the water or communicating about the water, and then all the other elephants probably come down as well to go and visit the water. It's a nice hot day. It's been very cold yesterday. The day is nice and warm and beautiful, as you can see, blue sky, not much wind. So the elephants are really, really enjoying being close to where there's water. It looks like that elephant now might have actually been at water at some point this morning, because you can see the end of its trunk is a little bit dark. Beautiful. So nice to see the elephants out in the open like this. You know, if it was summertime, all these trees and bushes have lots of leaves, and you'd hardly be able to see these elephants. Interesting question about whether there are more males or female elephants. I would almost certainly say that there must be more female elephants than males. Just because then one male generally tends to dominate a group of other males and get the right to mate with any of the females that are in estrus. So I believe there are probably more females, to be honest. It would just make sense, population dynamic wise, but it could be just a tiny amount more, like not a lot more females, more or less 50-50, but slightly weighted towards females.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to have you on board here. We are just admiring this beautiful lilac-breasted roller perched right at the top of a very tall tree. Normally they don't sit that high up because they're looking for delicious insects that are crawling around the ground somewhere. My name is Lauren. I do have Theo on camera today. It's a hot, well, no, it's not hot. The sun is shining, but it's chilly. The wind is really, really cold here in Djuma today. And I think we're going to keep bumbling. I just want to check this area for Tandy. There's no sign of Tandy since I had her yesterday leaving the reserve, which means her and her son are both on Djuma. They've just vanished. So that's my mission for today. I'm also going to check Chitwa and see if Miss Kuchava's around if I don't have any luck with Tandy. So I'm looking for spots. Tandy got her, well, we believe Tandy got her kill stolen, but nobody actually witnessed it. So we're assuming. And there's no sign of her crossing back into Torchwood. So I think she's somewhere in this great expanse of land hiding in the block. So we may as well search for her and see if we can get another wonderful sighting of her and her son. That was so magical the other night. So, wish me luck.
So we've got an elephant who's had some takeaway. He's literally gripping some grass, stuffing it in his mouth, and then keeps walking. Look at that, eh? It dropped a little piece there, it's picked it up again. You can see it just shakes the dirt off the roots so it can eat that without too much dirt in its mouth. Well, this whole herd is mobile in a northerly direction now, which is actually a shame because it's quite close to our northern boundary, so we can't really follow them. But maybe this elephant herd will stick around. I know just there at the northern boundary there's a lot of thick vegetation, lots of green stuff, so the elephants might stick around there and feed for the afternoon and then maybe come back to this water hole to drink a little bit later. But it's nice to see. So all these elephants that are following behind here, all these ones that are in the shot now, these are male elephants following behind the herd, being pushed out by the females because they are starting to become quite large and probably a little bit aggressive, because they're coming towards their sexual maturity. This is quite a young one, but they're coming towards sexual maturity, and when they do, they start being quite aggressive with the other females, especially those young females that are coming into their sexual maturity. And the mother elephants do not want any of that nonsense, not under their roof, under their watchful eye. The males will have to go off into the world and learn all about elephant behavior and how to be good elephants, how to be good males, strong males, before the females will allow them to mate. Only probably at about 30, 40 years old. None of these elephants that I've seen here are probably anywhere past 20 yet. This one's more like 10 years old. Well, he's got a decent set of tusks though. Do you see that? He's got nice tusks for a small elephant. He'll be a big boy when he's a bit older. Absolutely spectacular to see these animals. You see, as I said there, they're slowly stopping around those edge of that tree line, feeding as they go. Giants slumbering through the golden grasses. Wintertime is such a spectacular time. Gorgeous. Quantum, that's a great question. I don't know if elephants are more likely to be right-tusked. You know what I'm going to do? The rest of this drive, any elephants that we come across, I will actually probably try to have a look at them to see if the ones here at Pride Lands are more right-tusked or left-tusked. You can always tell because of the utilization. You'll see like one tusk be blunt or have a notch in it. And I'll also do a little bit of reading, a little bit of research and see what I can find out. But it's a good question, Quantum. I would have thought like, I don't know, maybe 50. I can't answer. I'm gonna find out for you.
So we've managed to find our way towards a waterhole, and the best sign of life are these small little birds that are perched on that dead tree. And what's interesting about them is they're perched on that tree and then they fly down to the water's edge, have something to have something to drink very, very quickly, and then from there they fly straight back up to that same perch. And I think they're just worried about being too exposed on the shoreline there, so they come down, have a quick drink, and then they get straight back up again. And most of the birds in question are red-billed quailias, and they really love flocking together, and that's the exact point that they're starting to come down to drink at. And one will fly and then the whole flock follows. Apart from that, around this waterhole there are a couple of hippos. You see there's a few birds that have taken off, but it seems like they actually finished drinking and they're moving away. So we've got about 3 hippos. It's very windy here, which I'm quite surprised about. When we were in that small little dry riverbed, it was nice and sheltered and we didn't see too much wind. And now that it's all open, the wind is pretty constant, blowing directly from the north. And there's one of the hippos. And whilst we are here around this waterhole, it reminds me of a question I got this morning from Marion, who was asking if a bald eagle is bigger than an African fish eagle. And I managed to go and read up a little bit about it. And a bald eagle is quite a lot bigger than a fish eagle. They weigh on average between 4.5 to 3.5 kilograms, whereas an African fish eagle will only weigh on average about 2.5 kgs. And so they are substantially stockier. They're not much taller, but they definitely have more size and strength to them. And I wonder if it's because of the cold climate that they live in. Maybe they need more fat and more insulation, which makes them heavier. Otherwise, there are some waterbuck which are quite hard to find, and they seem to be resting up in the shade, not moving around too much. But there's a termite mound, and they're lying just to the right of the termite mound in some shade over there. And it's nice to see some animals around this waterhole. We did see a giraffe, but unfortunately it started to wander away. We were hoping it was going to come down and have something to drink. You might just be able to see the ears silhouetted right in the middle of frame. And that's one of the young waterbucks in the small herd. So TaylorMade, we've actually moved away from the dry riverbed and we've come towards a waterhole which is permanent. And this waterhole has been dry before. It was actually dry last season. And we got so much rain that it filled all of it up, which is fantastic. I mean, one of the rangers who's been here for about 30 years says that was probably the fullest he had ever seen this waterhole. And so we were quite lucky. And the dry riverbed that I was driving up is dry pretty much throughout the whole year. It only will flow when we get really nice big rains. So the same rains that filled this waterhole up would have made that Tekwan or that dry riverbed flow for a couple of days. So it goes, it's almost like a flash flood. It just increases and it rises very quickly, and then within a couple of days it sinks and it's almost bone dry. And these hippos we disturbed actually. They came out onto the water's edge and they were sunbathing themselves, and then as soon as we got back. Seanak, it's not the biggest waterhole I've ever seen in my life, but it's certainly the biggest waterhole that we have on Ngala. And from us to where the hippos are is probably close to about 70 or 80 meters. And it's probably double the length of that, maybe even 3 times. So it's probably in the region of 200 to 220, 30 meters long and probably about 50 meters wide. It is quite shallow though, so when we get nice hot summer's days, the evaporation does happen quite quickly and we do tend to lose water around this waterhole. I mean, when we started Safari Live in around March, the water was right up against the tree line. You can actually see where there's no grass on the edge. That's where the water was literally about 3 or 4 months ago. And it's already shrunk by 3 meters. But the good thing is that this is going to be enough water to carry us right through up until the rainy seasons in November, December time. So, Rosalind, most animals within this area will need to drink once a day. So all of the antelope species that you can imagine would come and visit this waterhole, apart from the water-independent species like the steenbok. But a lot of them won't spend too much time around this waterhole, and it's something that I've mentioned a couple of times already around this waterhole. Just the vegetation seems very thick around here. So animals don't want to get surprised by predators that are waiting. And so all the animals that come down to drink will tend to come and drink for a few seconds, and then they turn around and they move out of the area. And that's why we don't see so many animals around this waterhole.
So all of your cat species, doesn't matter even if it's a domestic cat to a tiger, a lion, whatever it is, needs to keep their claws in optimal condition, because that's their lifeline. That's what they need, those claws to actually be able to grab onto their prey items and subdue them. And in order to maintain those claws, because remember the claws are unsheathed a lot of the times and they're getting wear and tear, and because they also formed with multiple layers of keratin, we saw those gemsbok horns, how it actually peels off. The claws on cats are no different. And they actually, in order to maintain them, many of you with house cats would have seen it very, very obviously, they will actually claw things. So to some people's shock and horror, they claw their furniture, other people put things in their houses for them. Well, our lions and leopards and things out here don't have that luxury. Caracal, wildcat, so they actually use what they've got available. And one of their favorite trees in this area are these shepherd's trees, and you can see these claw marks all the way up here, just going on the width of the track, and also how widely spaced they are on either side. This will be a lion that did this. I wouldn't be able to say if it was a lion or like a male or a female. I would, if someone had to push me into it, I'd say it's probably a lioness, just going on. They're relatively narrowly spaced, whereas a male would have actually probably gone higher up the tree as well. But it is just really, really interesting to see these little telltale signs of what is actually going on around you. Occasionally, if you are very, very, very lucky, and I've only ever found that literally a couple of times in my career, you actually find pieces of the claw still embedded in the tree. You know, those little nail sheaths that have come off embedded in the tree, and that you know, so I was just hoping to see that, but no such luck today. But at least it is a sign that there are cats around. I'm not saying we'll find them. These marks don't look fresh at all. You know, on this kind of bark there'll actually be a little greenish tinge to it if it has been scratched, and I'm not seeing it. So these claw marks aren't very fresh at all, but it is still a really, really nice tracking sign that of what it does occur in the area. And how beautiful is this lovely grey colour of this bark? For those South Africans that are watching, this tree is also known as a wit gatboom, which means a white backside or a white hole tree. Sheena has asked, how can we tell which animal made these claw marks? Okay, that's a great question. And I know for those of you who know cats, you'll be like, well, that's so obvious. It's not actually that obvious. Firstly, the starting point is to know what animals occur in your area. So we know, okay, there's very few things that are going to be digging their claws into a tree like this in this area. The key ones are going to be lion, leopard, certainly in this kind of size range, and then as you move down the line, African wildcats, black-footed cats, caracal, those kind of the much smaller cats. So when you see these marks higher up, this is widely spaced, and also the actual width of the individual claw marks, that'll indicate and it'll point directly towards lion having done this. But it's really, really interesting to see that. And there's actually very few other, well, there's no other animals in this area that are going to leave these kind of telltale signs.
We've stopped to admire some impala. This one's browsing. I wonder what deliciousness it is browsing on. Now, in the past few days, we've had some chats about Latin names, and I always say that the Latin names are not random. They sound bizarre because they're in Latin, but they all have meaning for every single species. And we used the example yesterday of the giraffe. And for impala is actually a Zulu word. But for their Latin names, I'm probably going to pronounce this horribly, but I'm going to give it a go. Epiceros melampus. I put on a little accent there. I hope you enjoyed it, my Latin accent. But basically what it means is high-horned Blackfoot. And there you have it. Their horns, which are lyre shape, can grow very, very tall, especially in the older boys. The longer and more twisted the horns, the older the male impala is. And Blackfoot, I wonder if we can get a view of those special glands on the back of their foot. They're black on the hind legs, and this is a special glands that the impala use for scent marking. It's entirely unique to the impalas as a species. It's not prevalent throughout the sort of antelope grouping. It's unique to the impala, and it's called a metatarsal gland. And basically, so much debate on what is the function of these glands. It's fascinating to read about. They're apparently activated when an impala's running, especially when they're stotting. when they do that really funny jump where they kick their back legs up in the air. It looks slightly entertaining, actually. And it's thought that it leaves a scent trail. So if a predator is coming, wild dogs are the perfect example. If a pack of wild dogs come running, the impalas have got no time to alarm call. So they split, they disperse, they run in all sorts of directions. They'll kick their legs up. And it's thought that the scent that comes from the glands helps them regroup into one herd once the threat has left them. That's one of the theories. There's also a lot of talk that it smells cheesy. I have never smelt it, so I cannot embellish on that, but apparently it's a cheesy smell. I'm not sure which cheese, though. There's a lot of different kinds of cheese out there. I'm a smoked apple kind of cheese girl. But in all seriousness, the function of this gland is not fully confirmed. Didn't quite catch that name one more time, Londeka, but you're saying impala are your favorite. Jacqueline, impala are your favorite. Yes, they're actually my favorite as well. Although I have to say I love all the antelope out here. Impala are just so successful, and I think sometimes they get overlooked because they are so numerous. They're everywhere, really. But they are a buffer species. They're numerous for a reason. So they're very successful breeders. And many of these ewes right now, I would imagine, are pregnant. And they breed in this way so that their populations are high. And this means that they are a buffer species to protect all the smaller antelope species whose populations are not high from predators. So I'm going to keep scratching around for spots and let these impala enjoy their lunch.
We are still at this waterhole, and we've just been joined by this little spurfowl that's coming down to drink, and it seems very, very thirsty. It's drinking a lot. This is what we call a Natal spurfowl, and I'm sure, I mean, it doesn't scoop a lot of water into its mouth at a time. But also just watch how quickly it has its head down. So it pops its head down, has something to drink, and then it picks it back up again. So quite like how those quailias were moving from one tree down to have a drink and then flying up and moving together. It's just a way to keep vigilant, to make sure that there's no predator of the sky that will come down and try and catch it. And things like African hawk eagles probably be one of their main sources of predators, I'd say, that they're most conscious about. But then other raptors, I guess, maybe African goshawk. I don't know if a shikra or a little sparrowhawk may be a little bit too big to go after. It seems like the wind is starting to die down a little bit. See, the ripples on the edge of the dam aren't as pronounced as they were about 5 minutes ago, which is quite cool. It means that we're going to be enjoying the nice winter sun. It'll be interesting to see how this spurfowl moves back. I'm sure it will scurry on back into the thick vegetation where it probably feels slightly more at ease and relaxed, where it's not going to get preyed upon. But we definitely have in mind heading straight back into the area of where we were this morning, and we had very nice fresh tracks of a couple of leopards that we were looking for. One of the trackers eventually found the leopard on foot, and then as we were trying to go in to relocate it from the vehicle, we unfortunately couldn't. And so our plan is, once it's starting to cool down a little bit, and head back into that area to see if we can maybe see that leopard either walking along the road or maybe just enjoying the afternoon sunlight like we are in the riverbed. And hopefully we get to find it. I mean, it won the game this morning, but we'll try and see if we can get the upper hand again this afternoon. So it looks like this little spur fowl's, yeah, look at it run and stop. And it goes. So Ian, a spur fowl, the shape of the eggs looks pretty much exactly like a chicken egg. Maybe a little bit more oval, but much, much smaller. And so a Natal spur fowl like that might be able to lay a clutch of between 10 and 12, I would say, at a time. Cool, now that it's finished its drink, we can move on so we don't disturb it. And we'll start heading straight down towards the river, which will probably take about 30 minutes for us to get there.
The fascinating thing out in these environments, even though they are regarded as semi-arid areas, or not even regarded, they are semi-arid areas, is just the diversity of life. And this remarkable little flower, that stunningly beautiful little flower that you're seeing there, is commonly known as wild lucerne. And please don't get hung up on common names and say, well, it's not, because there's so many different species with common names that are the same. If you say Justicia divaricatum or the old Monechma divaricatum, people will know what you're talking about. But the point there being is, even in these really, really harsh conditions, we're going into deep into winter, middle of winter now, you actually see these beautiful flowers are still going strong. And these little guys will actually flower right through the year. And what that means, it's, you know, we can say, oh, that's remarkable, there's this little guy flowering there in the heart of winter. But if you think what that means there's a pollinator. Look, on it now. Look, on it now. Okay, it's going to go. You see that little one?
Yep.
Hey! Okay, just give it time. And that's exactly what I wanted to point out to you. Okay, the fact that that flower is out now tells you that it's actually reliant, or it knows that there are pollinators out now. And there was a really, really good example of just what's going on now.
We've got her, everyone. We've got the queen. She appears to be alone. Miss Tandy doesn't look so full. Look at her. Tandy's taking to not walking on roads, everybody. She's taking very much to weaving in and out of blocks, which is not ideal for us. We're going to have to bundabash to keep up with her. But I wonder if she'll take us to the cub. I knew she was on this property. I really knew that she was here and not in Torchwood. But we're very close to the eastern boundary, everyone. Really close. So if she goes much further east, it may be bad news for us. But we're going to do our very best. She's looking well. I just don't feel she's had a big meal. I think she lost that diker. And then I don't think she's had anything substantial since. A scrub hare or two maybe, but another large antelope, I don't think so. Tandy, come on, take us to your guppy. We only had a brief sighting with him the other day. Turn here and we'll get a view. Hopefully she's going to go up this termite mound. That's exactly what we want, Miss Tandy. Oh, she sees something. You know what? Look at her ears. They're down. I'm not going to block her view. If I go any further round, I'm going to end up blocking her view of whatever it is she sees. I do know there's impala there because I just stopped to speak about them. Come on, Tandy, go get your impala. You need it. Mama needs it. It's amazing how aware of her surroundings she is. She knows she blends in. I wonder if she sees those impala. This block is thick enough for her to make an attack. Kayla, you're asking about the vegetation. Is it resilient against the driving? I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but there's certain protected trees that we can't drive over. And there's a list of trees that are protected. And there's a list of trees that we can drive through and they will just completely bounce back again like your crumbitums. So we have to navigate when off-roading very, very carefully and ensure that we don't go near any of the protected species. Oh, she sees something. Sorry, I'm going to come back to this question just a moment. She definitely sees something. But just like the other day when she caught the duiker, we didn't see the duiker. Tandy's vision is way more acute than ours is. But I'm sorry everyone, I do have to call this in just a moment. 1 second, get a little bit of room on the radio. It's very busy. So yes, there's specific rules we have here about off-roading, and you're only allowed to off-road for certain reasons, certain species, and there's a technique to doing it. So the vegetation is absolutely fine. It's very robust out here, and of course it's winter. It's not so easy to off-road in summer. Accidents happen in summer, I can vouch for that. She's smelling. Tandy's gorgeous, but just looking at her face, you can tell she's an older leopardess. I was in awe of her yesterday, complete awe. I've always admired Tandy, but I think I've found a new appreciation for her. I hope we get to see the cub, everyone. She's obviously left the cub again to go hunting. So if she successfully manages to hunt something and hoist it this time away on a much better tree, like a sturdy marula would be perfect, then hopefully we'll get the chance to see the cub. Good afternoon, mobile stations. We've located Tandy, female leopard, just off Cheetah Cut Line, Junction Leadwood. So she's scanning, she's wasting no energy. She's up a little bit higher on a termite mound. And
how far down Cheetah Cut Line is Tandy?
Almost at the junction, Drakensberg and Leadwood. She's not far from the cut line. You would see us from the road.
Okay, thanks. Copy.
So yes, in order to make a decision, she needs to process the smells, the sounds. It's windy today. I don't think it's as windy as it is in the Kalahari, but it's still very windy. And also look, what can she see using her eyes, her vision, her visual capacities, and being perched up on top of this termite mound. Shannon. We normally wait till about a year to name a leopard cub. And Tandy's cub is 5 months, approaching 6 months. We had him the other night. It was a very sort of last minute sighting, but Theo and I managed to give you all a view of her little son, who's huge. I couldn't believe it. And normally we wait until about a year for a leopard cub, and this is due to the sort of very low survival rate. It just makes it a little bit difficult for everyone when there's a name attached to a little one that we may lose. It makes it very sad. So normally the official process starts when the cub reaches a year, and it involves all stakeholders. So everyone that's involved around here, landowners, rangers, will be involved to choose. And normally it will be a local name, a Shangaan name, and it will have a beautiful meaning. We can give cute little nicknames for now. I think that's nicer than saying it or he or she. But the official naming process starts when it reaches a year old. I find it very relaxing just sitting, watching her take in the landscape, wondering what decision she's going to make next. Leopards are master stalkers. They're masters of this environment out here. Tandy knows exactly what she needs to do. She knows what prey she needs to take down to feed her and her youngster. She also knows what threat she faces. Hyenas are the biggest threat to Tandy, but then you also have lions and, of course, other leopards, especially male leopards. So don't forget, everyone, I'm sitting here with Tandy right now because we're live and we're interactive. So please don't forget to send in your questions. Use that hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, or you can use @FC on Twitch and the YouTube chat stream. Okay, everyone, we're on the move. She hopefully is not going to cross. Cheetah cut line is in that direction, everyone. And Cheetah cut line is our eastern boundary that borders Torchwood. And as lovely as Torchwood is, I'm sure we cannot traverse. I'm going to move Theo just to keep up with her. Okay, this should be a bit of a mission, but hopefully I'll be able to keep up with our queen.
So one thing I just wanted to point out to you, and this is really, really cool, and I think it's really, really fun, is I'm just taking a little area over here, and it's roundly about the same size as the area under this tree. What I wanted to show you here is when you dig, you've just got sand, and you can go as deep as you want, and it's just deep sand. There's a bit of organic matter, okay? You can just see that, so very, very clear. I did a very, very brief count. I counted 6 different species of plant. I'm not going into little insect stuff, just 6 different species of plant right here. However, when you move over to the shelter of this tree, suddenly it becomes a different story. I've counted just in here, I'm not looking at anything else. I did a very brief thing. At least 12 different kinds of plants in this tiny little area that we're looking at, including the parent plant, the shepherd's tree. But when you look at the sand here, look at this. Okay, it's just rich in organic matter, and that's one of the reasons why these thickets, or these what we call these parent trees, are so vitally important, because they provide a lot of shelter and a lot of nutrients to everything growing underneath them. But often how these things form is you'll get birds perching on these trees and then defecating, and in their droppings you've got a whole range of fruit seeds. So raisin bushes, you've got honey thorns, there's a nice mix inside here. And so they use it as a perch to defecate. Those seeds get deposited in this really, really rich soil and give a bit of rainfall, and then they start germinating. So I just wanted to highlight that to you, just how important these trees are for the ecology of these areas. You know, if you compare it to the open exposed areas where you just primarily sand, and then these thickets where you get a lot more nutrients, generating this immense diversity of life. And obviously that goes hand in hand with that little beautiful little flower that we were looking at just now. Enables that to grow. You get all these little insects that create that co-inhabit with these things. So you get a whole little ecosystem forming in such a small area. And if you take this on the bigger scale, right across an area as vast as Tswalu, just think how many of these little units are out there, each doing their own thing. But again, I'll come back to it, is these ecosystems are the sum of all the parts. It's not about this clump over here or that little patch of sand over there. This little patch of, this little clump with these different species, and it can't survive on its own. It actually needs the wider system, and the wider system needs these little bush clumps. It's just fantastically diverse, and I would be very, very happy to bet that if you had to go into the actual faunal diversity of it, in other words, we're talking about all the insect life, all the different invertebrates that you get out here, your reptiles as well. These thickets would be far, far, far more diverse than anything you'd find out in the exposed areas. It's just wonderful to see the complexity of these systems. I mean, we got little spider webs over here as well. There's little spiders here. There are actually a number of ant nests inside this tree as well. So there's just a staggering amount of diversity within this little thicket. And if we had to start looking really hard, you'd actually start churning out all sorts of things. The lichens, there's at least, I think there's at least 2 species of lichens even growing on the stem of this tree. So I mean, that in itself is pretty mind-blowing.
We're just repositioning. She's right on cheetah cut line, and she sees those impala that I stopped to show you all earlier and talk about their glands. She wants some. She's hungry. She's not had any food since that duiker. I really don't think so. Or substantial food. She may have snacked on a gecko or 2. But here's the challenge. Theo, are you ready? Look at what she's got to deal with. This is an impala, the same impala from earlier. She's got this whole expanse. She's got this complete sort of roads in front of us that is open. Where's her cover? It's not there. In order for Tandy to get these impala, she's got to remain hidden. She's got to launch her attack. It's got to be precise. That's going to be very challenging. They're on the other side. The impala are on the Torchwood side, which is not going to work in her favour. She'll still watch them though. Leopards have incredible patience. I just really want her to be successful. She spent all that energy the other day on the duiker and lost it. Spas, you're asking, can I tell the difference between Tandy and Kuchava? Yes, absolutely. They're completely different leopards. They're similar. She's Tandy's daughter, of course, but immediately it's almost striking how a young leopardess looks very different from an older leopardess. And Tandy is beautiful, but from a distance, immediately you can see this very, very saggy, low-hanging tummy and sort of a saggy dewlap. And then when you get closer, as I mentioned earlier, you can see that her ears are very tattered, her face is scarred. She's an older leopardess. She's 14 years old. She's been through a lot. Kuchava's much younger, and you can tell that immediately. You really can age a cat by looking at their condition. So I think Tandy's going to sit here for quite some time, and I'm going to sit right by her side.
So we found something rather unusual, at least for this time of day. And it's a scrub hare that's in the shade of one of these dense bushes. And we've just got a tiny little window in. You can actually see it moving around now. And this is where it will be spending the majority of the day, where it's nice and well hidden. And it will only really come out once it gets dark. And the reason why is it's just so small. It is very, very vulnerable to all sorts of different predators. Birds of prey, snakes, even this leopard that we're going to go look for would take an opportunity to try and hunt this scrub hare. And so it's doing really well. We're literally maybe 2 meters away from it. And it's just sitting in one spot. The more it moves, the more noise it makes. And the easier it is to get spotted. So predators moving through this area will be able to hear that and potentially see the movement, which will make it even more vulnerable. And so a scrub hare like this is only going to move if it really, really, really has to. And then it will use its big, powerful back legs to kick and try and outmaneuver any sort of predator that it's facing. But to see it like this, so close to the vehicle, behaving naturally at this time of day is rather special. You get to see those really big eyes, and they're very orange in color. It's probably the most time I've ever spent looking at a scrub hare, to be honest. At least during the daytime. Sure. I can even see a tick in its ear. So Gremlin, it is really nice, and it looks like it's even coming towards us a bit. But if it is coming towards us. But if it stops moving, it's even feeding on grass now. It is incredibly camouflaged, and that's exactly why it's that color, is to blend in with its surroundings better. No ways. You can even see the nose moving up and down, the whiskers. It's even munching on some grass now. I can't believe how unperturbed it is from us. So Ian, I mean, predators might be able to smell the scrub hare, but it's a very small animal, and I'm sure it doesn't give away a lot of scent. And so they'll usually either see them when they get active during the nighttime, or they might hear them when they're rustling through the grass. And so although it is a tiny animal, this is exactly how we found it. I think we were driving past it, I heard the rustling in the bushes, and as I turned, I just managed to see it. And so it made quite a lot of noise just for a small amount of movement. So I think, if anything, at this time of day, the predators will more than likely hear the scrub hare rather than see it. And then at night time, I mean, we often, especially just after sunset, we see a lot of these scrub hares out on the road. And if that's the case, then the predators will more than likely see them from a greater distance away. And it is vulnerable, but like I was saying, it's got those big, powerful legs, which offers it some amazing acceleration. And being very low down to the ground, it's got a very low center of gravity, so it can change direction in an instant, which makes it very agile. And so if it had to be out in the open, I reckon it would easily be able to outmaneuver a leopard. Whereas here, if it was trying to get away from it, it would just try and move into the densest areas where a leopard was literally too big to get into. And this is so cool. I mean, it just goes to show you that, I mean, no matter how many times you're out and about, you always are capable of seeing something for the very, very first time. And this for me is a first. You can even see, I mean, if it turns its head, there's a little white spot right in between its eyes, just above the eye line. I've never seen that in a scrub hare before. So a lacquer, the major difference is the body shape. And so these scrub hares tend to be a lot more leaner and the ears are more elongated, whereas a rabbit is slightly stockier and more fatter, I guess, and those ears tend to be slightly rounder. Scrub hares also are more nocturnal, whereas rabbits can be both sometimes diurnal or nocturnal. And we don't really get, or we actually don't get any rabbits around this part of the world within the low veld. It's pretty much only the scrub hare that we find. We sometimes see a distant relative, but this is in very, very dry seasons. We get a spring hare, which almost looks more related to a kangaroo than it does to a scrub hare. And that's been seen in the last 2 years. It's been seen once on Ngala. But if you move further north into the Kruger National Park, you sometimes see them quite a lot more, especially late into the night. So the only time I think I've ever seen a scrub hare more relaxed than this was when we were driving back to the lodge one day and we had an infrared light on it, so we weren't disturbing it with our spotlight, and we were watching it, and then out of nowhere an African wildcat ran from the other side of the road, boom, and killed it in an instant. Jeepers. And so this scrub hare certainly is spoiling us with its views. We might stay around and just watch it for a little bit longer, and then after that we're not too far from that leopard, so we'll see if we can try and find it again for the afternoon.
A very windy welcome to and beyond Pinner Private Game Reserve. My name is Devalt and we've been driving around the whole afternoon, and at last we've found an elephant bull, and it seems like it's a young bull. He's actually smelling some dung there, and now he's on the move again, and now he's now out of on the move again, and we think that he is actually following a herd of elephants that came through this area. I think it was yesterday. Jared actually was with a herd of elephants in this area, and we saw some of their tracks as well. But it seems like he stops every now and then to smell the ground or so, and it might be that this young bull is just not a dominant bull just yet, and he is still hanging back, following the herd in the distance. Probably just looking for some companionship. You can see how he's like picking his trunk up. I don't know if you can see that, like picking his trunk up, and he's smelling that strong wind that's coming over from the left hand side. So he's basically walking right up into the wind now, and that makes me think that the herd of elephants is maybe in that direction. I think let's follow him for a little bit. He is going to a little bit of a thicker area, so hopefully he sticks around on this open plain that we are at the moment. Can see even those tusks are nice and thin still, and even looking at the size of him, he doesn't look fully grown. I think let's go a little bit forward and see if we can maybe follow him forwards. Oh, excuse the wind in the microphone, and so it's very, very windy. elephant is going into the thickets now, so I think we're going to keep on going and look for the rest of the herd.
Our queen has not moved. Definitely got her spotty patient pants on. She's just watching them. The impala are very far off, far too far. Leopards normally wait until their prey species, their target, is close enough to pounce. So they're master stalkers. They can do the stalking as long as they have camouflage. And in this situation, she doesn't. She has an open cut line. So the impala are there. They haven't seen her. They're none the wiser. They're doing exactly what they were doing earlier, browsing and grazing, because they're mixed ecotone feeders. They have no idea that a female leopard, a leopardess, is watching them. Completely oblivious. But she knows it's not possible. She needs that element of surprise. So she's either going to move soon, or she's hoping that the impala will make their way across the cut line towards her jaws of death, which is most likely not going to happen. So I'm not quite sure how she's going to play this out, but she's hungry. I often mention this, but for the Kruger National Park, the figure is 16% of all hunts end in success. But furthermore, between 5 to 10% of kills are lost to other predators, particularly lions and hyenas. It's actually quite a small number, 10%. But I wonder if it's slightly higher here. The hyenas of Djuma are incredible at scavenging. They do hunt too, but they really know how to follow the leopards, and they are not scared. I actually think if the likes of Ribbon and Tandy were to battle, which sounds awful, I know, I think Tandy has the upper hand, or the upper paw, should I say. And yet she always backs down. She always lets the hyena take the food. But leopards are said to be one of the most opportunistic, and they will eat up to 92 different food sources. So if she doesn't get this impala, trust me, she'll get something else.
Gorgeous little ant-eating chacha. Oh, it's just flown away. But there are others in the tree just ahead. You'll see them over there. Just give us a little bit of time. There we go. So these are ant-eating chats. I just want to grab my binoculars and see the one of the light I know is not great for us, unfortunately. Okay, the one on the left is a wattled starling. It's a wattled starling, and what I've found very, very interesting over here over the past number of weeks, in fact, our pangolin researcher Wendy Pineno is finishing up with her PhD now on pangolins. We were talking about the other day the number of starlings that are out at the moment, and a lot of them are following aardvark and pangolin around, because we've gone through this before. As these digging animals forage, these birds then actually capitalize on whatever gets unearthed, and not just the things that the aardvark and pangolin are eating, but there's a lot of things that they'll eat that they'll unearth that they don't eat, and then the birds can actually go for that. So that's really interesting to see. We've also watched them foraging around after a herd of wildebeest. So they're not just centered on having to follow aardvark and pangolin for their survival. These birds are super adaptable and very, very, very predatory. Just the landscape is amazing. I know the light was a bit harsh on that side with that view, but it's just good to take it in.
And so this scrub here is in exactly the same spot, and it seems like it's even more relaxed. We just thought, when do we ever get to see a scrub here during the day? this close to the vehicle and this relaxed, and so we just thought we might as well just sit and enjoy it, because who knows when we're ever going to see something like this again. And it's interesting, it's only going after the long blades of grass that are still green, and so it's not feeding on any of the leaves of the grass. It's mostly the stalks that it's targeting. And I suppose with it being still green is where there's the most moisture, the most nutrients, and so the best to feed on. And we're actually talking about it now. In the last 10 minutes or so, we still haven't seen the scrub hare blinking. And so I don't think it's got eyelids. It hasn't blinked once. And his eyes are so big in relation to its head, because it's nocturnal, so it needs to be able to see really well. So Edward, apparently, I've heard of a few people seeing scrub hares fighting before. I've never seen it myself. I think it would be quite a rare thing to see. But for those of you who don't know, that they fight by using their back legs to kick. And that's why we call it boxing. So pretty similar to the way that kangaroos do it, I guess. And apparently it can get quite aggressive. I mean, they're small and those back legs are incredibly powerful, like I mentioned. They can deliver a nasty kick, especially if they've got sharp little claws on them. See, it's quite beautiful as well, because that light is just catching its eye. It's literally just one little window of light. So KT scrub hares aren't endangered, no. I think they're probably one of the most abundant animals that we find within this whole area, especially at night time. I mean, when you get out into a big open area and you look on the road even, it's not uncommon for you in a kilometer to pass 20 or 30 of them. So they are definitely not endangered. They live a very short lifespan. I think it's only a couple of years. And as a result, they breed very, very quickly. And they give birth to two leverets. And they are probably about the size of a matchbox when they're born. They are tiny. So if you look at the left ear, so the ear pointing towards us, you can actually see the tick that I saw a little bit earlier on. It's that little red dot on the left-hand edge of the ear. Otherwise, it's pretty perfect. There's no nicks or little cuts in that ear at all. I wonder if that means it's a relatively young scrub hare. It is. It looks like an adult just by looking at the size, but maybe it's a young adult. And it's quite selective in the way that it feeds, so it must be, see, it just bites one little stem off, and then it starts eating it like a little spaghetti, and right in the front of the teeth. So just like a rat, it's got two front teeth at the top of the jaw, and that's what it's using to crunch. And it just eats it slowly but surely, bite by bite, until that whole thing disappears. Yeah, so Fiona, that's what we're trying to figure out. I'm sure the eyes would dry out. Oh, there you go. It can blink. It looks like it was almost the eyelids, and it closes from the top and the bottom together. And we only saw that because I think a blade of grass got its eye stuck. It got stuck in the eye at least. So maybe it does have eyelids, or it's got different eyelids to what I'm used to seeing. But it's been keeping its eyes open for the majority of the time that we've been here. It's amazing. I mean, I'm looking through my binoculars at that eyeball and I can see the reflection of the vehicle in its eye. That's how close we are to the scrub here. It's got such fat little cheeks. Yes, so Cole, those ticks will eventually fall off, and so they find a host species like this, and they latch on, and they drink the blood, and then when they full, they either fall off to breed, or they fall off, and they morph into a different size, and then they find a different host. So you get two host ticks, and you get a single host ticks that you find in this area. So I think because the scrub hare is so relaxed, we've had a decent view of him for quite some time. I think it's time for us to move on, see if we can maybe try and find this leopard who's nearby.
Sadly, it's also time for us to move on. We are going to have to leave this sighting for now. We just wanted to give you some last-minute views of the Queen herself sitting on a shudulu. Not the leopard shudulu, but an actual shudulu. Yes, shudulu is termite man, basking in the glorious sunlight, looking for her dinner. But it's a busy lineup, I'm afraid, so we must dash. One last look at her beautiful face, I think, and then we're going to try and stay in the area, maybe quickly pop into Chitwa, which is not too far away, and then hopefully we can come back. Ah, look at that well-positioned leaf, Theo. I bet you love that. Okay, Tandy Cat, we shall see you soon. It is time for us to pull out now. Hopefully she'll stay on the Juma side, though. There's a Torchwood vehicle next to me. I shouldn't say that too loud. Thank you, guys. Enjoy. So yes, off to Chitwa I go.
So David and I, we're just ambling along, enjoying being outside. And literally, we're enjoying being outside. And so I'm not even going to make any bones about it. Yeah, but I'm kind of like hoping maybe for an art park a little bit later. Yeah, I've been saying how cool it's been the past couple of days, but the temperature's actually been climbing and climbing and climbing this afternoon. So it may be a little bit warm just yet, but I think in the next 45 minutes to an hour, the temperature range will be really, really good for aardvark. Well, actually not necessarily for aardvark, but it's the prey, what they're feeding on, these northern harvested termites. And as it cools down, they're going to be popping out, and that means the aardvark are going to be after them. So, and of course, as we're driving along, we can see anything else as well. I'm really hoping for a caracal, maybe like along these rocky ridges, but that is good. That'll be like wow, that'll be a big one if we get one of those little guys. But at least you're seeing the landscapes that we're in, and the varied kinds of cover that we're dealing with. Yeah, like some areas a lot of grass, others with a lot of more densely wooded, others very open and sandy. But it's such a beautiful, beautiful environment, these arid areas or these semi-arid savannas. Mrs. Lapwing has asked a very interesting question on the larger ecological side. And the question that Mrs. Lapwing has asked is, do the different reserves plant trees if there's a deficit? Now, I know some people out there might think, oh, what kind of question is that? It's actually a very, very, very good and very interesting question. To tell you, the short answer is no. Certainly we don't plant trees, and I don't think anywhere any of my colleagues are working. David, none of those guys plant trees down there. But there are lots of projects globally where they are trying reforestation techniques, and that involves planting literally hundreds of thousands to millions of trees in certain areas. So it is a really interesting question. That it's unlikely that we'll ever have a deficit of trees in these areas. In fact, probably just the opposite. As climate change get warmer, there's more CO2 in the atmosphere, it actually becomes better for woody species.
No, your audio's cut out.
Is it? Oh. Okay, so I've got a very interesting looking tree here. Well, apparently I'm having some audio issues. Sorry about that, everyone. Let's hope that they go away. So, there's a tree here which I find very interesting. It's not the best example of that tree, but it is a very interesting tree. It's called a resin tree. In fact, I think it's called a currant resin tree. Well, this one's got smooth leaves, so it might not be a currant resin tree. The scientific name is Ozaroa, if anyone wants to look up those trees. Okay, so how you identify this tree is because often it's got lots of this gnarly looking driftwood all around it. So it's got this really cool looking stuff, and the tree itself is not always broken like this, but it never grows very large. Okay, and the other way you can identify it is because it's got this very dark twisted sort of trunk. Oh, my audio is cutting out again, but that's okay. Hopefully it's going to be fine now. Is it better? Not really. Dearie me. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to talk about this tree a little bit more just to hope that the audio comes back. One thing that's really interesting about it, I don't know if you can see this, there's a tiny bit of resin coming out of that. Can you see that? Now, in some of the trees, the resin is a bit of a blue color. And that blue color the one with the blue resin, it's very sticky. And what you can do is you can heat up the resin. If I take it in my hand, this one is very hard. But you can heat up the resin in your hand by rubbing it together, and you can make a very sticky substance that is very useful for catching small animals. Yeah, guys, I hope you enjoy what's coming up next.
Feel a little bit sad that we have to leave Tandy, but we have to share her. I can see lots of water back over here. Let's see what we in the hole. I'm still waiting to show Theo wild dogs. Chitwa's normally the best place to actually come across wild dogs, but they've been very, very quiet. It's their denning period, so that of course makes sense. They're going to stay very close to their dens, and that normally lasts 3 months. Just want to check what's going on over here. Bear with me. What did I do with my binoculars? Oh, Theo, all the hippos are out the water having a little party over there. Can you see them? It's quite far off in the distance. They're all coming out the water. Sweet, you got a youngster in the middle too. We can actually probably try and get a little bit closer. But sometimes as soon as they hear the vehicle, they're off. Should we try? Should we try and get closer? Let's do it. So as soon as a space becomes available again, we will go back to Tandy, I promise. I just hope that she does not cross into Torchwood. Okay, I'm just going to try and pull up a little bit to get a better view of these hippos. us a little bit closer, Theo. You work with that? Okay. There we go. Oh, belly flop. Oh, belly flop are coming. Oh. And in the water we go. Now, can you see that? The big one is actually still standing. Because we get asked often, how are hippos keeping themselves up in the water? It's actually shallow. So the young ones there went under because they're small and their legs don't, well, they're not long enough to hold them up. But that adult was still standing there. And it just shows you the dam is very shallow. The water volume is getting less and less, but I have to say Chitwa Dam is just incredibly full. It's the fullest I've ever seen this dam, as with many of the other dams around. And I just wonder how that is going to affect summer. So we know how it's affecting winter, because we're in winter right now, but how it's going to affect the summer ahead of us, because there'll be more rain, there'll be more water. We don't want to risk the dams bursting or the dams becoming too full, or the sort of dam walls just completely flooding over. That would be awful for the environment here. So Chitwa Dam is extending far and wide in all directions. So it's providing a lot of water to many of the animals here. And there's still many pans, and there's still sort of lots of areas that contain water, which is why the predator sighting is not so concentrated in one area as it normally is in winter. Normally they have no choice but to all timeshare around the man-made pumped pans. But this entire view of Chitwa Dam is all from the rain that fell in summer. Isn't that incredible? I'll never forget the day Tristan, Seb and I went dancing in the Mulwati, and it was flowing so fast, and it was up to our knees. I'm just intrigued to see what kind of summer lies ahead of us. I didn't get that name. We're going to go forward a little bit, Theo, now that they're in the water. But basically, hippos can move, so they can walk. They're not, restricted to always being in the water. So therefore, if this water hole was to dry up, which is looking very, very unlikely at this stage, they will just move on and find another water hole. If they can't find they will find another water hole. There's man-made pumped pans everywhere in this area. So even if all these sort of dams dry up, they will find another area to go. There's lots of different areas. They can head north, they can head south, they can head east, west, and find some water. But winter is normally the time that you find hippos are very aggressive, they're agitated, they're angry because there's not enough water. And that's when you will find a lot of them are injured and wounded. And I think we're going to get a nice view from them here, because the males especially will fight. There's just not enough space. So the number of hippos in the water exceeds the natural carrying capacity. And that's actually what happened at Chitwa last year. Oh, big yawn. Big territorial yawn. I know that dam is yours. I'm just saying hello. Yes, I think there was 66, if I'm not wrong. I'm sure I remember 66 hippos counted in Chitwa Dam, and it wasn't as full as it is now. And therefore, it was it was just overpopulated, way above the sort of carrying capacity for the water volume. And therefore, there was so many fights, so much aggression. Hippos lost their lives, hippos were severely wounded, and the sort of amount of defecation, shall we say, was far too high. So the influx of nutrients was completely unsustainable for that body of water, for the dam. And it ended up creating quite a severe situation, actually, in that they created small hypoxic areas, maybe even anoxic, but I'm pretty sure it was hypoxic areas, because they eat so much hippos. and therefore during the day when they're in the water, they're always pooping. Always. And ammonia, methane, hydrogen sulfide, all these sort of chemicals can actually build up, and a lot of these chemicals come from indirectly from the hippo poop. And because there was lots of pockets of hypoxic areas, that meant there was no oxygen available for the fish, and we had a mass fish die-off. All around this dam, it was just littered with catfish and tilapia. And of course, the predators had a field day. I'll never forget that. And the reason was that there was far too many hippos for the volume of water in the dam. So that population exceeded the natural carrying capacity. It was really fascinating. It was sad, but it was fascinating. And some fish are actually more resilient to ammonia than other fish. And catfish, believe it or not, we were talking about them this morning, are actually more tolerant. They're very tolerant to ammonia because they're found in freshwater bodies like this, surrounded by hippos. However, if there's far too many hippos, I mean, there was 66, then the ammonia is going to build up and it's going to be completely unsustainable for life there. Hypoxia basically means oxygen depleted. Not the absence of oxygen, but oxygen depleted. Sorry, Londeka, I think we're in a tricky signal spot. Let me just go forward a meter because I'm not getting your comms. Chitswell can be a bit of a hit or a miss. Let's just drive forward 1 meter. Oh, I see you, Mr. Hippopotamus. Okay, let's try again. See if our signal's any better. I don't think I'm going to get that name right, but you're asking, do hippos live in families? They are actually very, very social. And normally with hippos, you can call the collective noun for a group of hippo at least is a bloat. And I love that word. I think it's just great. You can also use pods, but bloat is far too good. And normally there's a dominant male or a territorial bull, you call them, and he will have females and calves all around him. And you will also find some small bachelor associations. It really depends. Generally, when it comes to hippos, the groups are not really stable. They're not permanent. It's a bit of a fission-fusion society, and it really depends on the density of hippos, as I've sort of been talking about, and the habitat conditions. So social groups can break up and come back together, but generally it's a territorial bull surrounded by his ladies. So I think we're going to continue exploring Chitwa Dam and see what else we can find.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
And so, although we haven't found this leopard, we have discovered why we've been seeing lots of tracks coming in and out of this area. And if you look through those green leaves, on the bark behind it is that red little glow. And that is a carcass of a common duiker. And that is why this leopard has been moving around this area so much and why we've been seeing its tracks a lot. So just as we left that scrub here, the trackers managed to find this carcass. And so they directed us in here, but still no sign of that leopard. But with this carcass still having a little bit of meat left, there's a good chance that it will return back into this area. And just look at the tree that it's in. A big, beautiful tree called a sycamore fig tree. And that carcass is nice and hidden from vultures. Hyenas probably won't even see it from below. And so it's just quite a pretty scene. And there's lots of birds that are chirping around this fig tree. But no sign and no chirping that might show us where the leopard might be. So she might be lying somewhere around here in the shade of these dense bushes around us, and so we might just have to try and wait and see if she comes out as it starts to cool down. No, it's a pretty safe spot, like I was saying, for her to have had that carcass, and it's quite a nice tree for her to climb because this tree is quite soft, which means that it's quite easy for her to get her claws into, which makes pulling up a lot easier. And so she's chosen the spot there, and it looks like it's safe enough. It's not going to fall if there's any wind. Owen, can you see that bird up at the top of the tree there? The yellow one. So there's a really cool little bird that we'll show you quickly, which is just beautiful in this afternoon light. How's that for colors? Look at that gold on the breast, that red bill, black head. It's called a black-headed oriole. It's also putting on a show for us. It's grooming. It's perched there so nicely, and it's not the only bird species around this tree. And I'm just trying to see if it's got fruit. I don't think it does. No, it doesn't look like it. I guess it's just the dense canopy and maybe a few insects that have drawn these birds in. It's spending a lot of time cleaning itself and getting itself ready to move. It's beautiful, and it stands out. I mean, look how bright that yellow is with the green background. Oh, there's even a monkey that's joining us. That's on the left-hand side of the tree, quite far away. A little vervet monkey that's coming in, and so that's quite a clear indication that that leopard might not be as close as we were hoping. Because if it was this close, that monkey would have seen it by now. And if a monkey sees a leopard, it will start alarm calling at it and going crazy. But it's pretty much in exactly the same tree that this leopard's kill is in. So Bex is asking if there's a chance of seeing a green-winged petilia. And I mean, I think as far as I know, they're a lot more common in pridelands. So Mike is your best bet to try and find your green-winged petilia if he's up for the challenge. But I'll keep my eyes out and see if we can find one. It'll be a very, very pretty little bird to see. It's just quite a tricky one because it's the size of a coin almost. Not that small. But it is very pretty, and I'll show you in the book quickly just so everyone knows the bird that Bex has asked me to find for her. And so this is it, the green-winged petilia. And so it's also got a nice red head. There's a glare, sorry, we're going to try and just make sure you can see it properly. So this is it. So it's got this zebra stripe on the breast, and then that really, really distinctive red head for the male. The females lack it. And then the green with a very red bum. So that's what the green-winged petilia is. And it's a difficult one to find, but we'll see if we can have any luck. The best thing to do is just to look for little bird parties like we're seeing now. They tend to stick on the undergrowth of these canopies. So if we're looking for a green-winged petilia, it's usually in and amongst these very dense bushes that are around us, rather than up on this tall tree like the oriole was. So if that monkey is up and about and basically in exactly the same spot in the same tree that this great duiker is in, it might mean that that leopard has moved a little bit further than we've initially expected. So it might be worth us just trying to do a loop and returning back here a little bit later to see if there's any changes.
Talking of leopards, I'm sure some of you will remember it was Tingana that came all the way down to Chitwa to eat up all the fish. And the catfish that he was eating will contain ammonia because of the situation that happened inside Chitwa Dam. But the ammonia traces will be really low, that they won't actually affect leopards, but they were high enough to affect the catfish themselves. So essentially a dam for a hippo is a big communal toilet. Oh, look at that youngster. You can tell it's a youngster. They all defecate all day long and the volume is just too high. So to sort of break down what I was saying, when a hippo defecates, the feces will sink to the bottom naturally. It does not float. And the feces start to decompose, and they do this through bacteria, and associated microbes will basically come in and almost hoover up the oxygen, if you like. In order to decompose the feces, they're using oxygen. So they start to rapidly hoover it all up, and that's what essentially deoxygenates the water. So the more hippos, the more poo, the more bacterial action, the more depletion of the oxygen. So if you only have a few hippos in this water, then there's enough water around, there's enough oxygen to overcome that situation. But back when that happened, I think it was a year ago, there was too many hippos, too much poo, too much bacterial action using up all the oxygen. And that is really what caused the fish to completely, it was sad to say, but the fish suffocated. That's what happened at the end of the day. And when these microbes are hoovering up the oxygen, they're actually producing chemicals. And that's what I mentioned earlier. That's the ammonia, that's the hydrogen sulfide. And all of these chemicals are lethal to the fish. So hypoxia can be temporary. And that's exactly what happens here. There was pockets, if you like, of water that were depleted, completely deoxygenated. And the fish within that area ended up suffocating. But then, once the situation changes, what you really need is an influx of water. So water, water or a big rain event, because there's no influx of water here. There's no inflow or outflow. It's not a running river. It's a stagnant dam. So what you really needed was heavy, heavy rains to come in, raise the volume of water and oxygenate it again and get rid of the, hippo sewage sludge, shall we call it? I don't really know what to call it. But that's basically what was necessary in that situation, for intense rain to come dilute the feces and then re-oxygenate the water. But I think because this winter has been so wonderful and there's been so much water, look at the volume of it, that I really don't think we're going to come across a situation like that again. There's enough water for a higher number of hippos. So even if we did have 66 hippos, I don't think that situation would arise again. I'm not understanding Lonteca today. I didn't get that name once again. But I don't actually know how deep this dam is. I've never seen it dried up entirely. But I don't think it's very deep. I really don't. And that's why that hippo, the Xioning, this one, I think this is the territorial bull. He also did some helicopter-style territorial display just a moment ago. And he's standing. I mean, he's a large animal, he's a large bull, but his legs are touching the bottom. As for the youngsters, I'm not sure, but I really don't think this dam is too deep. But yet, I've never seen it completely dried up. It's one of the dams that you can always rely on for water here. Ian, not that I'm aware of, hippos are herbivores. And they're really not carnivorous at all. They come out at night time to forage on the vegetation around the water bodies, because it's normally palatable and soft. But I have seen on the internet, of course, that deep dark hole that is YouTube, hippos eat carrion. So sometimes if they come across a carcass or some sort of dead animal at the side of the dam or the water body, they are known to snack on that, which is very unusual because they are herbivores. So I've never seen a hippo eat a fish. Is this one's eye okay? Yeah, and it goes under. But yes, I think it's highly, highly unlikely to see hippos go fishing. And compared to other mammals, they really don't eat as much. Normally, mammals eat 5% of their own body weight. Hippos will only consume 1.5% of their body weight. So it's a lot less. But they graze and forage all throughout the night. They're nocturnal feeders and diurnal poopers. Call, it depends on the situation. So hippos can walk. They normally don't stray too far from the water body at night time. Never really go further than 15 k's away from the water body to get back in time for sunrise. But if the water completely dried up, they would have to walk until they find more water. They're truly amphibious. And they're the only ungulate that relies on the water in such a way. And they need the water. They really can't survive without it for so many different reasons. Number one being their skin. And amphibious basically means relating to both land and water. So it means the sort of two phases of life. And they need the water, so I imagine they'll walk as far as they have to. Cole? Oh, we've got a hyena up here. Okay, we're going to investigate this hyena for now and see what it's up to.
What we've got here has got to be one of the single most exciting things you have ever seen on wild earth. Trust me on this. This is going to blow you out the water. So I hope you're sitting on the edges of your seats, holding onto your drinks. Do not spill them. Watch this. Wow. Look at that. That grey patch of sand. Now, I'm just winding you up. But what it is very, very interesting. What you're seeing here, some people might say, what on earth is there? Okay. What you're seeing, what you're actually not seeing is this hard surface here. You see I'm actually tapping it. It's very, very hard. Well, when I say it's very, you can actually push your finger through that quite easily. This is what is known as a biocrust. So as the name implies, it is a crust. It is firm to the touch, but you can actually break through it. And the bio part is actually the secret over here. So it means it's actually formed in a biological manner. And the way this forms is, and there's different kinds, but generally what happens is if you've got a very, very stable environment with very little disturbance, okay, and that could be wind, animals, whatever, with enough organic matter, you can actually get very, very delicate and fine plant growth on the surface there. You get these different kinds of biocrusts. Some are formed only with lichens, some are formed only with mosses. This particular one is actually a kind of moss, and it'll go green in the rainy season, and then the rest of the year it's actually black like this, or light grey black. But the amazing thing is some of these are so incredibly diverse and so old. I don't have exact dates, but they can be very old, and they are incredibly sensitive to disturbance. These ones out that we get in Tswalu, they are actually few and far between. There's not very big patches of them, and they are pretty much uniform, homogeneous. There's not a huge diversity to them, so we're not worried about them. But there are areas in central South Africa, in the Karoo, you get these gravel flats, and these biocrusts can have developed over hundreds, sometimes thousands of years, and they're incredibly sensitive, very, very high diversity on them, And those crusts, if they get damaged or disturbed, that damage can last for decades and decades and decades. We know, even these ones at Tswalu, we know so little about them. And that is actually one of my things. I actually want to get a researcher to actually start looking at these biocrusts, even if it's a preliminary study to say, well, what is the diversity and what are these little organisms that are reliant on these biocrusts? And does it need to be afforded any specific measure of protection out in these environments? We don't think so, but we know so little about biocrusts that it would be a fascinating study to go into. Anyway, that's just, I love those kind of things where, you know, we're always looking at the big trees and the lions and the pangolins and the, you know, whatever. And yet we forget just how important and how complex these systems are. And not from the big stuff, but right down to these tiniest of plants. And I absolutely love that kind of stuff. And I bet you've never seen a more exciting segment on Wild Earth ever. Maybe not. But I think we're going to carry on. And we're going to let these biocrusts just be biocrust. They get quite crusty if you disturb them. So, yeah, let's move out and go continue and see if we can find something slightly less crusty. Oh, what a beautiful day out here, eh? Yeah. I don't even know if we're still on air, are we? Hello? Hello? Hello, Earth?
So with that monkey being completely relaxed, we actually saw it on pretty much the same level as that grey duiker carcass. So that leopard isn't there for the time being. We thought we would just do a quick little loop around, and we're in no rush, we're in no particular, or we don't have any particular plan, we don't need to get anywhere, so we just thought we'll take it nice and slow, and whatever we see, we see. But we're going to cross down in towards this drainage line, which is another dry riverbed, slightly further away from that big waterhole we were at a little bit earlier on. So a different riverbed to the one that we drove up, and then we're going to head probably towards one of my favorite areas at this time of day, just because it's just so beautiful with the Drakensberg Mountains in the background, the setting sun, it's beautiful golden grass, and then a lot of the time quite a lot of herd animals like zebra, giraffe, sometimes wildebeest, impala. So if you drive that one stretch of road, you can sometimes see about 5 or 6 different mammals at the same time. So that's why I would like to head into that area. It's starting to get to that time of day now where it's cooling down, but it still is quite light. And so you would imagine these nocturnal animals would start to be thinking, especially when we get into the shade like this, you can feel the temperature drop immediately. So it's starting to get quite cold. So you imagine that these predators are starting to get up and active soon. So hopefully we get to catch at least 1 or 2 of them active today.
So it's still a pretty quiet day, it seems, everywhere in South Africa, but I think it has to do with these August winds that we've been having right in time for the month. But we've come back to this floodplain that Jared was filming the elephants yesterday, and like they always are here, there's a herd of wildebeest here, and there's actually a couple of zebras in the distance as well. And the wind's died down a little bit. You can see it's slight breeze still, but we've come to this beautiful scene here, and the sun is about to start setting in the west there. So hopefully it's going to give us some beautiful scenes. Our tracking vehicle is going to go back to where we had a herd of elephants earlier, but they were just in some thick areas. So hopefully they're going to find them for us, and they'll come out and we'll be able to film them. But for now, we'll just enjoy this very peaceful scene here. You can see these wildebeests, their heads are down, and they're actually feeding. I know the grass looks very long where we are at the moment, but they're feeding on a little spot there that's got nice short grass, and it seems like they always prefer that shorter lush grass, and it's probably just because there's different types of soil here. The soil is maybe a little bit harder there, and there's like a bit of shorter grass growing. There's actually a couple of birds nesting in those open little patches as well. It seems like it might be some African wattled lapwings. And I think these wildebeests might actually stay in this open grassland for the night. You can imagine it's nice and open for them to be able to spot predators. If there's anything like a pride of lions that should be coming through this area, it will be a little bit easier for them to hopefully spot them. Might also be that they're moving to these open grasslands with this wind that's blowing at the moment. Because this wind does take away from their sense of smell and hearing. Obviously they can smell whatever the wind's bringing, but anything that's downwind from them, they might not smell. Well, that is a very good question, asking if wildebeest and buffalo are related at all, or from the same family. So it is seen more in the family bovines, and wildebeest is actually closer related to antelope, even though they share similar features with the horns being curved up like that. But yeah, we actually see, and as far as I know, they are a little bit further related from each other. So even if you look at the skinny legs of these wildebeests, doesn't that make you think of something like an impala, or even a kudu, or all the other antelopes? They have very similar body structures, thin legs with stocky bodies also. And if you think of a big African buffalo, they're nice stocky legs, very cow-like almost. So not too closely related. I'm sure they have some relation, like all cloven-hooved animals do. You can see there's actually one or two youngsters in between this little group that we have here in front of us. You can see them just by identifying them with those little spiky horns that they have instead of the curved horns. And I think, what it's about, they usually drop their calves around December, January, around there. So these are about 8 months old, and these females are probably already pregnant with the new. They are almost completely independent of their mothers, probably just hanging around for companionship and also to be part of a herd. I mean, there's safety in numbers, but they are almost feeding, well, they are feeding only on grass for now. They've stopped suckling. There you can just see that African wattled lapwing walking around in between these wildebeests. The wind is blowing a little bit, so we might not hear a call, but if they have a nest on the ground here, they might even try and call and trying to deter these wildebeest from maybe stepping on their eggs that's on the ground. See how they're all starting to feed into that little spot there on the left hand side now. Oh, what a beautiful afternoon. Okay, I think we're gonna stick around here for now and wait for that sun to set, and then we'll see if we can maybe get some nice shots. See how they're actually lying down and settling down as well. Oh, or maybe rolling a bit.
We didn't have to move too much further until we found a really cool animal. We've got a nice big herd of elephants that are slowly feeding through these thickets. So we've got one here which is quite well hidden, and then a couple of bulls that are play fighting further to the right. You might just be able to hear the clash of the tusks every now and again. There were a few more elephants that we saw in the background, but I don't seem to see their movement anymore. They might have moved further into the bushes. And I'm sure what we can see there is one of the elephants breaking branches in that leaf. I think there's two that are sizing each other up still, so they're actually playing around and almost headbutting one another. There we go. And it looks like it's two adolescent males, so they're just playing around, sizing each other up. It actually looks like it's getting quite serious. The one on the left-hand side, it seems like it's got the upper hand and it was pushing the other one quite far back. But we can just, every now and again we just see the movement of the elephants behind the trees as they're walking, and it seems instead of walking away from us, they might be moving more diagonally left to right. So Nikita, you asking what the largest recorded tusk of a tusker has been, and I don't know in the world. I know within the Kruger National Park, there for it to be declared a tusker, the tusks, at least one tusk has to weigh over 45 kilograms, so around 90 pounds. And the heaviest set of tusks, I think, was close to 60 kilograms on each side. So that's probably the heaviest. And then the longest ones were close to 3 meters. They weren't as heavy, but they are as long. Within the Kruger National Park, there's actually a beautiful elephant museum where they've got these tusks of these old majestic elephants. And you can walk around and stand underneath these tusks and see how big they really are. It's quite interesting.
Look at this amazing thing that we have here. It is a hooded vulture, and it's having a drink. And I'm quite excited, not only by this vulture, but by the fact that I think there's something going on around here, because I've watched 2 other vultures land just north of where we are now. And so we might be in for some special afternoon entertainment. My apologies for my absence. We had a vehicle issue, a power issue, but that's fixed now. Isn't that special? I'm just moving very, very slowly, hoping that it doesn't fly off. Gorgeous hooded vulture, and such lovely light as well. Now, vultures often drink water, and they also bath themselves. So this vulture is trying desperately to try and clean itself after presumably getting itself full of gubbins just up the way. And I'm hoping fervently that we're going to find out precisely what gubbins it found. Helen, it's not that common. BK was just saying to me that, he doesn't think he's seen it before. It's just because they don't normally sit like this on the ground. So they drink a lot, they go to water, and in fact they pass on disease by going to water sometimes and, you know, in sort of infecting the water with, I think, sometimes anthrax actually. And what's unusual about this is that they don't normally sit. Normally they fly off as soon as you get anywhere near them. And this chap has not done that. He's being very, very confiding. And it's so lovely. The colours are just beautiful. And it's by itself because it's just drinking on its own. They don't live in social groupings. You will find them in groups, sometimes because there are kills, or because, you know, they're at a carcass. But the hooded vulture especially is often on its own. That's a really nice picture of this bird. I think for a lot of people, there's kind of an impression that vultures can't be attractive, but this one is beautiful. Sorry, I missed that enthusiastically born. What was that question? Oh, yes. Well, I'll show you. It's a juvenile. It's got juvenile plumage, and I'll show you what the adult looks like, and then we're going to... Oh, that's beautiful, BK. Golden sky and vulture. So, if you look over here, once BK's stopped being artistic... Sorry, that is an adult. I always get slightly confused. The juvenile doesn't have the white head. So there's the adult. And not often that pink either. So that was an adult. Right, let's move. We'll just go and see what's around the corner here.
Harping about buffalo and wildebeests earlier, and literally as you left us, Marcel looked up and he was like, oh, there's some buffalo. And there's a herd of buffalo slowly coming onto the floodplain here. So we've just driven past them to get the sun behind them. And how beautiful is this scene here? Incredible. And it's a large herd. There's quite a few individuals that's still in the bushes on the left hand side here, and they're slowly feeding out. And hopefully we are going to be able to stay right here, and hopefully they keep on moving in the direction that they are, because then we are going to be having the most amazing views. And I can just see a couple of small ones in the back there, and I hope that they also going to come out so we can show them to you. You can see these two that's here on the right hand side of the road, actually both of the ones that's closest to us. If you have a look at their horns there, you can see they've got almost like a helmet on top of their heads, and that shows us that these are actually 3 young bulls right next to each other. And the way that we know that they're young is just by looking at the size of their horns. And that helmet on their head is actually known as the boss of the horns. There's quite a few females with tiny youngsters in between as well. Seems like they're actually feeding more towards our vehicle rather than onto the floodplain. I wonder if they maybe came a little bit onto this open grass floodplain and then felt this chilly wind that's blowing at the moment, and now they're like, nope. Turning back and slowly feeding back to the bushes on the left hand side. But let's see where they go from here. Oh, there's actually a very small one, but it's just behind some bushes now. Hopefully it comes out and we can actually film it for you. Oh, there's a female. There's an older cow on the far right hand side there. Marcel's going to put the camera for us on her, and there's actually a young bull right behind her, and there you can see the difference between the horns of the males and females. So that bull, the young bull, you can see that helmet quite prominently, and if that cow turns her head towards us now, you'll see that her horns are still quite wide, telling us that she's probably quite an old female, but she does not have that big helmet or boss on her head. There you can see that. You can also see her body a lot more skinny on top of the back of her neck there, and that young bull, even though he's young, he's got already quite a bit of muscle, and so because he's going to have to fight for it, for his place and in the hierarchy of this herd. Incredible, they're all actually facing us and slowly feeding in this direction. Oh, there's a tiny youngster that's running around right in the back there. You can just see him. Let me get my binoculars out. Marcel can zoom in for you, but I have to have a look through the binoculars. He does not even have horns yet. He's just got tiny little stumps on top of his head there. So cute. Okay, they're going to keep on feeding towards us, and we're going to stick around and see how close they get.
We've got some other very interesting animals enjoying the sunset. Look how they're sitting on that log, catching the last of the winter sun. Those are vervet monkeys. A couple of them have come down to the water and now are heading off slowly up into the bushveld. It's nice and peaceful this afternoon. It's been quiet on the animal front. We've seen a few animals here and there, but on the whole, I don't know what's happening. Maybe just the calm weather has caused all the animals to move up into places we can't normally get to feed on some of the vegetation. The monkeys are going to move off as well into the sunset. Goodbye, monkeys. I hope you're going to have a wonderful afternoon. But something else I wanted to show you. We had a discussion earlier this morning about soapstone carvings, and I think it was Elizabeth who ended up saying that she would love to see me carve an elephant. So I wanted to show you my progress so far. So I don't know if you can see that very clearly, but I have managed to chisel my soapstone into a block, and there is the outline of the elephant, Elizabeth, that I'm going to carve. Hopefully it's going to look fantastic. We haven't really been finding many elephants on the drive this afternoon, so here is an elephant just for you. As you can see, it's quite a nice block that I've made. It's not the best quality soapstone. I'm talking like I'm some sort of soapstone expert, but yeah, this piece of soapstone is going to become a beautiful elephant one day. In the meantime, we're just going to enjoy this beautiful sunset.
Welcome back, sorry about that. We are in the bush, so sometimes the signal is not great. But look how close these buffalo have gotten to us now. We are keeping fairly quiet. There's one or two of them that's just looking at us every now and then. But luckily the wind is blowing our scent away from them. so they are fairly relaxed. But look at this, the whole herds now basically came onto the floodplain here. There's the exception of maybe one or two in the back there. I haven't really seen a massive bull, a massive dominant bull just yet. How incredible is that? And the beautiful sunset in the background there. So yeah, you can see those 2-3 young bulls that we were talking about earlier. They're right next to us here. And there's quite a few calves that's actually come out in the open here. I think I'm going to ask Marcel to pan over me here and see if he can show you the one that's here in front of us. His mother is very relaxed, is keeping on feeding, but it, however, is looking straight at us. The cutest face ever, right? Look there, you can just shake his head a little bit, and if you look closely, you can just see the tiny little horns that's actually starting to grow out of his head there. And look at those big ears. He definitely has to grow into his ears. Oh my goodness. Look at this one that's just come in front of the youngster now. Looks like it's a young female. See no boss on her head there. And she is picking her nose up a little bit and smelling towards us. But we're gonna stick around for now. They are slowly feeding in this way. And by the next time you get back to us, they might be around us completely.
We've got the cub. We've got Tandy and the cub. Okay, I'm just gonna move because the other vehicle cannot see. This has been a long lineup. Okay, do you see it, Theo? Just right there. There's Tandy, don't worry. Tandy's here. There you go, calling mom, mom calling him. Look, how sweet. I think they're going to bounce together in happiness here. You're going to see Tandy in just a moment. We're surrounded by lots of vehicles, lots of photographers, so please bear with. And unfortunately, everyone, they've gone into Torchwood, which is slightly sad. I was waiting about 15 minutes to see them, but we've still got a visual. Hopefully they don't go too far in. How sweet. Look at that tail. Can you hear the impala? Not happy. Okay, I hope that wasn't it. Let me go forward. Ah, they're bounding, they're leaping. I think if I just reverse, we might get a view. Bear with me, everyone. We might not, but it's worth it. It's worth a try. That was quick. That was brief. Oh, we've been sitting waiting a long time, everyone, but I'm not sure we're going to get another view, I'm afraid. They've leaped and bounded into Torchwood. Elizabeth, precious, I know. I'm desperate to spend more time with them. The cub's been on Juma the whole time. But we just didn't know where, and obviously we can't spend time with the cub when Mom is not here. So I think I might just sit tight a little bit in case we get another view. But for now, that's all, folks. Thanks, Obs.
This is a fantastic sighting. Sorry, we lost you there a little bit earlier, but this is a beautiful, beautiful, let's call it a static sighting. For those of you who don't like snakes, don't worry, we are totally safe. This is not a snake, but rather a snake skin, the entire shed skin. And literally, we have the entire skin here, from the tip of the tail right through to the head over here. And look how gorgeous that is with that backlight. It is absolutely stunning. This is not too fresh, but that being said, it's also not too old. We've driven this road multiple times. This thing is embedded inside these bushes over here. We would have seen this because it really, really, really stands out in the light. Like I say, we've done this road many, many, many times over the past couple of weeks and that, so we would have noticed this. I'm pretty sure we would have. It just really stands out. This is a Cape Cobra, so it's our largest venomous species, certainly in terms of length and mass that we get on Tswalu. We also do get a species here that gets longer than, or as long, sometimes a little bit longer than this, called a boomslang or a tree snake. But they've got a very different shaped scale pattern on the top. In other words, the top is the side that is closest to the camera. The belly scales are on the side closest to me. But this snake is probably 1.2, 1.3 meters in length. This is a fantastic example. And later for the next segment, I'm actually going to try get it out here. We won't do it here because it'll take a bit of time and I really want to do it carefully. But you can even see the eye scales where they've come off everything. This is a brilliant, brilliant demonstration of just how a snake can get its skin off. Because remember, they actually need to shed their skins in order to grow, and a lot of crazy creatures do that. Spiders do it. I mean, and there's a lot of examples of animals that do that. But to see it like this is just so cool. And even for the species, as a Cape Cobra, this is a decent sized snake. Oh, and that light is like, for a cameraman, that's great, so Darby. Yeah, he's enjoying that backlight through that. Wow. It's these little gems of finds that always amaze me. Oh, Sassy Kathy has asked a very, very nice question there. And the question is this: how long does any snake take to shed its skin? That is very, very variable on the species, as well as the condition, the body condition of the snake, as well as the environmental conditions that it's actually living in. So hot, dry, cold, and also on the substrate that it has in order to be able to shed its skin. They will often start loosening the skin by actually going along very, very rough bark. If you look to the left over, to the right over here, sorry, inside this clump, you'll see it's got this nice, very, very dense woody thicket that it could actually get a proper grip to actually get out the skin in that. So that can really vary from a couple of hours to a couple of days.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
So we were trying to see if we could get around to another road and have that herd of elephants walking towards us. And so we decided to drive here and listen for branches breaking or the trumpets or anything that suggested that they were coming towards us. And it doesn't sound like they are, but we do have some kudus and some impala in the distance walking past the space that we have. And it's actually quite nice to see because there are impalas and kudu almost in the same shot. And so you get to see how much taller and how much bigger those kudus really are compared to those impala. Something you don't really get to appreciate, but those impalas are dwarfed by those large kudu, and that one on the left hand side looks like a slightly smaller kudu. I guess that impala is slightly further away than the kudus, which makes it look even bigger, but they are significantly taller. There's actually another kudu coming out, so that's the fourth kudu that's walked out, and more impalas crossing. And we haven't quite gotten to the area that we wanted to this afternoon, but it's not the end of the world. We've just been taking it nice and slowly. We had a really good time with those elephants, just listening to them feeding, and now it's quite a peaceful scene here with the last of the Franklin calling, these kudus walking past with impala. And I think we'll give it a few more moments before we start heading back in the direction of where that grey duiker carcass was, and see if there's any sign of that leopard that might be up the tree feeding at this time. Both the impala and the kudus are moving in exactly the same direction, which means that they've either come from a specific spot or they're walking towards a specific spot to hang around to. And if they've come from a spot, it would definitely be a waterhole that they would have had something to drink at. Those impalas might be wanting to move towards an open area to rest for the evening, but those kudus will remain in the thickets and they'll sleep there for the night.
Dave, they aren't going on the access, but they're heading towards...
A hyena sniffing out Tandy and cub. Always. This is Tandy's biggest problem. Always following the leopards. They're not actually following the scent of anything else but the scent of leopards, hoping that it leads them to not only a leopard but a leopard with a kill. So we're still on cheetah cut line. We haven't moved, and it's just been incredibly interesting watching this hyena. I've not ID'd it yet. Following the exact path that Tandy took, following her scent. She's not smelly to me, of course, but the hyena, with olfactory capabilities like they have, will be able to follow Tandy. It's making a decision right now. But if it follows Tandy, they don't have anything, I'm afraid. So the hyena would most likely just leave. I'm not sure I know who this hyena is. I don't immediately recognize it. Anyone, if you have IDs, do let me know. Hashtag Wild Earth or at FC. This hyena looks how I feel right now. I feel sad. Why are you sad, hyena? Very scratched up, scars on the face, scars on the ear. Looking in the wrong direction, no? He's facing into Juma, whereas Tandy and cub, Tandy and son, have gone into Torchwood. I think this is a hyena from the Tandy Diker kill yesterday. We had two. Heart appeared, but the first hyena when we were not live, because the internet decided to, well, let us all down. This is a hyena. I wonder if this hyena just follows Tandy all day. And obviously immediately heard the duiker squeals and was on the case within seconds. I think it's the same individual. Hoping a delicious scent of a dead impala will fill its nostrils at any moment. That's what it's doing, smelling and listening in order to make a decision. Well, it's getting rather chilly. I think I'm going to have to zip my jacket up. Bear with me. Here we go. At least we know that Tandy's traveling a lot more with her son. I don't think he was too far behind today at all. So we're going to keep watching this hyena for now and see where it decides to go.
Here is a stranger to some, but what a special privilege to see him again. This, everybody, is the great pirate leopard, Okomori. We haven't seen him for some time. Well, I haven't anyway. How special it is to see him again. You might hear some speaking in the background. It's not what it sounds like, which is a party. It's just a game drive. How wonderful to see him again. Now, he had his head up beautifully just as the sun went down, and then, of course, as the sun went down, he put his head down again. So this is about as good as it's going to get for now. But we'll stick with him, and with any luck, he'll lift his head again. There we are. Come on, Hook, give us a glare with that slightly dodgy eye of yours. Well, it's not really slightly dodgy, is it? It's very dodgy. He looks quite well. The last report I had of him was when he had a fight with Molwati, my least favourite male leopard. And, I mean, this is right back in his sweet spot, this part of the world. This is his territory. Okomori's, I mean. There you can see how magically camouflaged he is. Thank you to those of you who have warned us repeatedly about the lioness on the dam cam. I couldn't find it this afternoon when we went out on drive, but apparently she is around now. And I was going to go and have a look at her, but then we had reports of hukumuri. And I knew you'd all like to see him. And so I came this way. Hello, Shendara. You say, hi, gorgeous hukumuri. Yes, he's got a kind of warrior's gorgeousness, doesn't he? He ain't a pretty boy, hukumuri, the one-eyed pirate leopard of the West. And he always, Tristan used to say, and Tristan is a long-time presenter, he used to say that hukumuri looked like he was up for a fight, and he did. Very different from Tingana, who took a totally measured approach to life. This guy, without the size, seemed to be pretty reckless. He had a bit of short man syndrome. He's very stocky, but he's short. We think he lost the sight in his eye, possibly to a warthog that hit him. It's almost eerie when he looks at you, isn't it? He's looking magnificent, though. There are muscles all over him, rippling. Very satisfying after a very dodgy start to the afternoon. Vika and I got stuck, then we had to go back to camp. But here we are, now with magnificent hukumuri.
So I just wanted to show you very, very quickly this magnificent snakeskin. You saw it beautifully there, but I want to show you the head and just the amount of detail. And something that many of you may know, but many of you may not know, that the eyes actually have scales on as well. And they actually need to shed those scales over the eyes in order to be able to grow and see properly. So we're not going to be long here, but I just really wanted to show you that. We're actually going to leave the skin. I was going to try to take it out to show you, but it's so like entwined in the thicket. I don't want to damage it. I'm just going to leave it exactly where it's supposed to be. Just out of respect for the snake. I mean, that's really cool. But just, you can see those scales in the eyes. I mean, look at that, eh? That is really cool. All right. So I think we're going to carry on ambling on and see what lies down the road ahead of us. Yeah, there are lots of lion tracks around the area. I'm totally not hung up on trying to find a lion, but you never know. You might bump into them, or they might bump into you. All right.
I haven't been able to leave because I'm just finding this so fascinating. This hyena, I don't know if it's falling asleep, standing up, or I'm really not sure, but it's not moved a muscle since the last time you saw it. I still can't identify it, I'm afraid. I'm either too rusty, or this is a hyena that I just don't recognize. All you experts, I know you're there, help me. The ears are very damaged. It's a small looking hyena, looks like a male. The females are obviously much bigger when it comes to hyenas. Oh, you're moving, that's good, not sleeping, okay. Come say hello. I know many people have mixed feelings towards hyenas, but I think what I admire about them the most is their lack of fear. Fear is one thing that stops humans doing a lot of things that we could do, and they say that on the other side of fear is everything you've ever wanted, and that's maybe me going a bit too extreme, but I just admire how fearless hyenas are. They really don't seem to be scared of very much. And it impresses me. They'll walk right up to lions, the apex predators, right at the top of that food chain. They'll walk right up to leopards. They'll battle with one another. They'll fiercely protect their young. Not much scares a hyena. And they try to climb even though they know they can't. You'll always see a hyena do a little jump trying to get up a tree to reach the leopard, but it never works. Oh, I'm not sure about this name. I think I'm going to have to make it up. Check. Definitely didn't get that right. Hello. I feel like this is possibly not a Juma clan member. From what I've witnessed, I obviously spend a lot of time with hyenas and I spend a lot of time with leopards. Excuse our aerial. They follow mostly leopards. Now, they'll be very aware of the lions, and if it was a lone lioness, I think a hyena would have no qualms about following her. But an entire pride, a hyena would follow by scent, but stay on the periphery. It's definitely not wise for a hyena to walk into a pride of lions, especially a angry pride. But they do follow those predators and wild dogs. Because wild dogs are messy eaters. They hunt by coursing, but when they feed, it's a frenzy, and they all tear apart the prey. And of course, bits of flesh or maybe even organs can get scattered, and hyenas definitely can scoop that up. So they follow all the other predators, to be honest. I've never seen them follow cheetah, but here in Juma, I've actually only seen cheetah once, and that happened to be a coalition of four boys that I originally thought were impala, yes, before I got my glasses. So that hyena has followed Tandy, I might add. I think Tandy's long gone deep into Torchwood now, but the hyena took the same path as Tandy. Following the leopard, but maybe already aware that there's no kill. Maybe already aware that Tandy doesn't have anything that it can scavenge. Well, hopefully Tandy will come back to Juma once again. She, of course, does not see the boundary line. This is just one extension of her territory. But for us, this is a boundary line, I'm afraid. And well done, James, on getting Hukamori. It's been a long time since we've seen the gangster of the West. I don't quite know where he found him, but I'm really hoping that Hukamori starts to visit Juma again. He got pushed out by Mulwati, the new dominant male in town, and I can only hope that Hukamuri decides to slowly start to come back into Juma and regain that western section. It's the eastern section of Hooks, but it's the western section of Juma. Okay, so I'm going to bumble on into the darkness and see what we can find.
We are back along the river. You might just be able to see it exactly over here. So that's where the main sandy patch of the Timbavati River is. And we are very, very close to that carcass that we had a little bit earlier on. And I'm going to take it nice and slowly from here because I don't want to make too much noise. Now, I was also thinking a bit earlier on, if it was a very relaxed leopard, there's a chance that over the course of that sort of a half an hour that we were at the carcass, we might have seen it. So it could be slightly unrelaxed. And so approaching it as it's starting to get dark and just taking it nice and easy is the best way. So we don't want to make too much noise, we don't want to impose on it, and just take it slowly and hopefully see if we can spot it from a distance. So the tree that it's in is that big one that I'm pointing at over there. No, it's not actually. It's yeah, that one, the one to the left. So it's quite difficult to see from here, especially if we're looking into the canopy, and I don't want to drive much faster than this, so we just take it nice and slow. As soon as I can see the branch that the carcass is on, I'm going to stop, use my binoculars, see if we can see it from a distance. And I actually think it's not that tree either. It's the one a bit further ahead. There we go, the one with the very light bark. And so from this distance, what we'll be looking for is that long tail of the leopard with the white spot on it. Maybe the silhouette of the feet hanging on either side. I can't see it yet. I'm not going to go off-road yet. I'll move towards the tree still, and then we can look in before we make our approach. So you'll see a little change in color as we switch over to infrared light, and that hopefully will give us the possibility and the chance to see it without having to use the spotlight. So if it is so slightly unrelaxed, see there, I think this is probably going to be our best view for now. I can't even see the carcass from here, but there's no way that that leopard is in the tree, unfortunately. We would have seen it from this angle. But maybe it's lying somewhere close to the base of the tree, grooming itself, getting ready to climb and have a last feed. I mean, it was a very small carcass, but there was enough meat for it to be interested to come back. No, I don't see it. I'll move a bit more forward. What's nice is there's a termite mound very close by, so it could even, just to get a slightly higher height advantage, maybe it's up on that termite mound. See, if we were to just make, if it was an unrelaxed leopard, and we were to make an approach straight towards it, revving the engine, crunching branches, that's very intimidating to it. So for us to just edge and get closer and closer slowly, it might just help with the realizing that we're not too much of a threat, and it might relax to us even more. It's incredible with these leopards that tend to be slightly unrelaxed, to see them in the daytime compared to at night. Their behavior is completely different, from being a very skittish, nervous animal to sometimes just feeling a lot more at ease being in the dark, and they might just relax a little bit more. Have you got it? Yeah, you can just see the kill. Literally just see, I think that might even be the head of the duiker. But I mean, it's, so at least we know it's still there. And no sign of that monkey either, so it's not going to give us any indication from alarm calls. All I can hear is a fork-tailed drongo, and it's starting to get quite active. It's a very metallic call. And sometimes even if we don't see the leopard and it is around, to be in a situation like that where that leopard gets the chance to smell the vehicle, to hear the engine, to listen to us talking, to make sure, and just gives it the chance to get used to us, and it will relax. So we'll spend a few more moments here before we decide to go off-road for it again.
Might be nice to actually see it digging. They dig sometimes. Like, this is brilliant content. So they obviously weren't that hard up. Gorgeous little ram, eh?
Such a good looking boy. So did you have to get tested for rabies there, Bill? Or what did you...
Oh, yeah, no, I went for the whole fucking 9 yards, eh?
I bet nothing.
No, nothing. We are. Somewhere in that thicket there's a steenbok. You got it there, David. You see it standing in the middle of the frame, eh? No, trust us, there's a stern coming out on the right, There, go in there, straight in. Like there we go. There you go. Just see it, there we go. So we were actually just enjoying a moment here, watching them feeding and really relaxed. There were 2 of them. And as they do, amble out of frame. Why? Because they can. But what I was hoping to see here, they actually are known to dig for food sometimes. And I was actually hoping that we'd actually get that. I'm just going to go fractionally forward. David, go back to where you were. Go zoom in there now. Okay, just go in there. Closer. Okay, there. Just wait there. I'm just going to go forward. Hold on there. Hold on. There. Look at that. So that was a bit of a risk, because they are quite skittish and shy little antelope. So the one closest to us is a male, and the other one, I'm even looking through binoculars, actually looks like a mother with a younger male. Eh? When she puts her head up, I'll see. I can't see if she's got horns yet or not. But yeah, so I was hoping, they're very delicate feeders, and I was hoping that we'd actually see them rooting around, because sometimes they use their paws, or their hooves rather. Yeah, that's a female. Gorgeous. Look at those ears. Oh wow. Yeah, so they actually sometimes use their hooves to dig up little roots and tubers and things. Yeah, she's saying that. Now she's got stage fright. Gonna go join the little ram. But she is distinctly larger than that ram. But look at this environment that we're in here. What a landscape, eh? What a gorgeous landscape. So we actually got some nice grassland just up ahead here. And that's what I was hoping. The wind is not in our favor now, unfortunately. Earlier we were quartering into the wind, trying to get aardvark, maybe pangolin. But we're now unfortunately going with the wind. So the chance is less, because their senses are really good, so they'll probably pick us up. But you never know. If one's off at 30 or 40 degrees to the vehicle, yeah, there is still a chance we'd get one. So we're just going to amble down. Maybe we're lucky.
waiting here with Hukumuri, and that light is from another game drive vehicle, it's not us. And just off to the west of where we are, there's some alarm calling. It's not very enthusiastic alarm calling, but it's got Hukumuri's almost attention. He did look for a while. See? But it's not very enthusiastic, so I don't know what those impala have seen or heard or smelt. The hook isn't particularly interested. In fact, he's going back to sleep. Now, it took some driving and great strength on the part of this car to get us into this position. This is the only view of the leopard, other than the one from where the spotlight's shining, but they've got a view of his backside. You can see the contrast in the fur on his neck and his chest in this kind of light. It's very, very special to see this cat again. So, just to give a little bit of a summary, he had a fight with Molwati. We are not entirely sure what the extent of Molwati's territory is. I'm thinking that this guy's probably managed to hold on to the most of the western edge of his territory. He may have given up some ground, but this is his kind of traditional stomping ground where we are now. So it's not like he's gone, and he's looking in very good health. So I think he's come through that particular conflict. He may have lost a little bit, on the eastern side of his territory, the western side of Molwati's. But there ain't nothing wrong with him. He's not unhealthy. He's looking very good. And he's in his prime, you know. There's no reason that a leopard like this should be losing condition. Sorry, Penelope, I'm afraid I missed that. Alright, we're going to go into infrared now, everyone. 5, 4, 3. Oh, you've gone. Okay, we're in. There it is. Penelope says this is perfection. He is, isn't he? BK, I'm going to say that I'm not sure I back your decision there, given that now all we can see is sticks. But you are the cam op. That's actually a cleaner picture of him, isn't it? Yeah. Alright, I see why you did it. He looks eerie in this light, doesn't he? Phew. And that's his good eye. His bad eye is even eerier. And in the background, the magnificent white-browed scrub robin. And sleep. Well, everyone, slightly frustrating afternoon for me, but in the end, magnificent. And what a day it's been for leopards. Hukumuri, Tandi's magnificent little cub, and of course Tlalamba, That's here at Djuma, and obviously lots of other wonderful animals in the desert and the Lowveld and the northern parts of Maputoland. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your questions and comments. We will see you tomorrow at 0600. Until then, bye-bye.